Shemai Brandy and welcome back to my channel. My name is CaitlinAnwyn for anyone who's new here, and today I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks to make building in Planet Zoo easier. Whilst building my last couple of zoos, I found a few tricks and I thought I would share with you 5 of my favourite things to use in Planet Zoo to make everything a lot easier to build. So I'm gonna start off with things that are quite easy and might be more well known, but then as we get through the video I'm gonna share some of my more intermediate tricks. The first thing would be keyboard shortcuts. You can't really build in Planet Zoo with just your mouse, so the first one is obviously Z or Z, depending on where you live, and that can be split up into 2 different things. When you have angle snap on, it will rotate to whatever degrees you have selected, or if you don't have angle snap on, it will rotate smoothly, but that is just on like the flat surface. And then if you click X on something, that will put up the advanced move tool while you have it in this mode. You don't always have to click on the button to switch from move to rotate. A quicker way of doing that is also pressing X again. So you press X to get into the advanced move tool, and then if you press X again, you can then go quickly to the rotate part, and of course then you can put angle snap on and off with that too. The 360 rotation will only work with off the grid props. And then the next sort of key you would need is shift, and shift works in a few different ways. You can use it with pathways to elevate pathways, or you can use it to raise different props as well. So you can use it with pathways and with build objects. And with shift you don't always have to raise objects either. You can lower objects into the ground too. That can be helpful with things like rocks and plants, so you could lower down a tree into the ground to create a bush instead. Control is probably the one that I keep my hand on the most. If you hold control while you are holding an object, you can place things in straight lines, or you can multi-select objects, and it works in different ways. To multi-select in a group, you just need to hold control, or if you're not in a group, you need to click on the multi-select tool in the bottom right corner and then hold control to multi-select different objects. Now, when it comes to plants and the nature in a habitat, I find it really easy to go through the animal menu and then select the continent and the biome from the animal menu, and it's the same where if you want to remove something too, you can quickly click that little red X in the corner to remove any plant that the habitat animal does not like. If you want to pick something that is recolorable, it is FlexiColor in the filters. And if you want to keep your colors consistent, copy and paste the color number over to the other object. So Control C to copy and then Control V to paste. And next would be groups. To multi-select, I always like to click and drag to select a group of things, but sometimes you might need to then hold control to remove a thing if you don't want that in your group. Or you can merge into a group. If you are building like a shelter and you want to make sure that that shelter is easily duplicated, you can click and drag again and then merge into group. But say you don't want something in a group, you can split from group. I couldn't get this roof to line up nicely, so I split that roof from the group so I could then use the advanced move tool to line it up. So then you can ignore the grid placement and place it wherever you want it. So now we're getting a little bit more in depth. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I like lining things up precisely. So I usually use another object or a pathway to line things up against something else when it is not a grid prop. So it's a lot easier to see that you have things in precise lines and spaced out nicely. And if you want to make sure that you have a certain size, you can then use the walls as a grid reference. So if you want to make sure that your object is a meter wide, you can then place 2 walls down with the meter grid and then place the non-grid prop next to those 2 walls, and then you can guarantee that that object will then be a meter square wide. And that will help a lot with things like building circular items like these little towers. I've also used the circular walls to line up some wall toppers on top to build an accurate circle to go on top of the rounded walls. And there's loads of different ways that you can use these sorts of tricks. With this one, I wanted a quarter of a circle, and it doesn't always have to be the grid props that you can work against to build something. If you want to build a shape that's a little tricky to build from reference or from memory, it is so much easier just to find an object with a similar shape, like with this hexagon. I'm using this hexagonal planter to build my own hexagon with the art shapes. So instead of looking at a hexagon and trying to replicate it, it's sometimes easier to lay the shape on top. In this case, I wanted to make a curved desk, but I wanted to make this a base game object, not a pack object. So I used a base game prop over the top of this Australia pack fence to copy the shape of it without including that object. So then I could delete the object underneath and still have the same sort of shape. And I also used that to make a skateboarding ramp as well. So I liked the curve of this metal piece, but it was too big for the space that I was using. There's a lot of large objects in Planet Zoo, so if you wanted to use like a little bit, but it was like sticking out or it was just far too big, you could use another object and lay it over the top like this and create something that is smaller but still has the same sort of shape to it. And of course, like using things like this, you will always need to use the advanced move tool with X. That's why I started off with the keyboard things, and then we have gradually got more and more difficult sorts of things to do in Planet Zoo. Yeah, I didn't want to make this video too long. I just wanted to give you 5 of my favorite things to use in Planet Zoo to make my building easier, and I wanted to share them with you and put it in this concise little video. I use a lot of the examples of previous builds that I have done, so you can see that all of the things that I have included are super practical and I've used them for lots of different builds. And I usually give these little tips in my speed build videos, but I realize that not everyone will watch speed build videos. Some people might just want some tips on how to build, because this game is kind of tricky and it's taken me years to figure out these things as I go along, so I wanted to share them with you and maybe make your building life a little easier. But of course, I don't only use these 5 things, so if you are interested in any more tips and tricks on building in Planet Zoo, let me know in the comments and I will make even more of these. I don't mind, I really enjoy helping out, and if you want to know anything specific, let me know too. And I'm gonna leave it off there. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, and if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.